Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
Matt Horn
is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
We are witnessing the most aggressive military buildup in Russian history.
We've been keeping tabs on the Russian president and his defense minister, Durov.
Oh my God.
It's a coup.
We're dealing with a single rogue minister.
What if we could free President Zakharin?
We rescue the Russian president.
Hello? I'm trying to reach Matt Horn here. This is the President of the United States. I need him urgently in the Situation Room. We are going to DEFCON 4. Please respond. I need him to be the captain, the new captain of Hunter Killer, the submarine, because he has to go and save a bunch of people, including Gerard Butler, who is an actor who seems to have drowned.
On the line, we have Caroline Goodall talking to us. From where are you talking to us from, Caroline?
From sunny Southern California.
Oh.
Los Angeles, the Laurel Canyon, home of all the musicians.
Fair enough. Outside my window, I can see a load of people setting off fireworks in a car park.
Oh my God! But hang on, it's not quite Guy Fawkes Night. That's in 2 days, right? But it's nighttime there with you. Well, I only left yesterday. I arrived here last night because I've been in England, because I've been very busy. But I got here today because it's the American film market. So that's kicking off now, and it was time I came and checked on my house that has, some guests and, see some sun. It just started getting really far too cold in London.
All I'm going to say, Caroline, is at least you're not here for March.
What do you mean March? What March?
Next year.
Why won't I be there for March next year?
When the whole British economy collapses in on itself.
Oh, I know. It's just dreadful. It's just dreadful. I don't understand it. I've been in the Houses of Parliament, actually, lobbying. It's very strange to me because I'm a bit of a global citizen, and I do see myself as a European. My husband is Italian. He's a cinematographer. My kids were born in America, so they're American as well. I also have an Australian mother who also is half French. I was raised partly in France. I live also in Italy, and I feel completely and utterly European, even though I was born and raised in the UK. And it's just going to be very hard for our own business that no one seems to understand, because everyone thinks that we make British product, but very little of the product that we make is actually British. And we need to be able to sell into Europe so that we are not part of a quota system from outside the EU, and now we will be part of that outside the EU quota system, which includes, of course, the United States. And most people will go for a US product rather than a British product any day of the week, because it brings them in more money. So we're going to have a real issue, I think, with our industry, and everyth's going to go to the Republic of Ireland because they're still part of Europe and they speak English. So all those big American productions, including The Crown, might I add, which is not British, will end up shooting somewhere else where they still speak English. They can still get sort of English-speaking crews, but preferably ones with an EU passport.
But other than that, you're okay, Caroline?
Other than that, I'm absolutely fine. Yeah, sorry, that was my little political soapbox, but you obviously agree with me.
I can't say for nay or yay whether I agree with you, because I'm vastly independent on these podcasts.
Oh, right, okay. But you just said it's going to be dire. You told me March is going to be awful.
That's true.
I've met people who said they voted leave because they wanted to buy something and they thought that maybe the house prices would go down. So they voted leave in order to torpedo the economy. That's ridiculous.
Well, in a political sense, I suppose that's a nice little segue to your new film.
Yes, sorry.
It's your new film, Hunter Killer.
Yes.
Starring the wonderful Gerard Butler and the wonderful Gary Oldman. Unfortunately, you're playing the President of the United States. All I'm going to say is, at least you're doing a better job.
What was funny was actually I hopped on the plane yesterday and this woman was sitting in the same row as me, and she turned around and she went, "Hello, Caroline," and I looked at her and I thought, "You look really familiar, but it's hard on planes to place people." And she was one of the producers of Hunter Killer. I'm one of the producers of Hunter Killer, and I went, "Oh my God." And she's absolutely lovely. I had to admit, I said, "I'm really sorry I haven't seen it yet, but I will. I'm going to see it tomorrow night when I get to Los Angeles." And she said, "No, I loved you as POTUS," because I actually wasn't sure if I was still in it. You're never sure if you're still in things, and I thought since I was meant to be playing kind of fictionalized version of Hillary Clinton, and she didn't become president, maybe they'd decided to reshoot and get an orange orangutan instead. But it appears not, because obviously it was just cheaper to keep me in. You know, they offered it to me, and, you know, it was kind of a real honor, I think. I was very flattered, and then I did my best, actually, to try and get the vocal cadence of a kind of Hillary Clinton, and I wore a wig that was vaguely, sort of more or less, you know, kind of in her ballpark, although I don't know if I did really quite... I wasn't mad about the wig, I have to say, but anyway. But she's actually got a very difficult voice because she's got a little Arkansas, and she has some New York, and, you know, she's been from all over, and she also has a voice that's very different when she speaks publicly than when she speaks privately. And there was some tapes of her speaking privately, which was very different. Her voice is lower, she gets a little higher when she's speaking in public, and also a lot warmer. There's a kind of coolness about it when she's public speaking, and everyone's always said that she just isn't very comfortable public speaking, and I think it's true. And I think this is one of the problems of politicians in general, is that we expect them not only to be squeaky clean in their private lives, but also to be able to be all things to all men, and to be able to turn on a sixpence and speak off the cuff. And that's very hard for most people. You know, they're not trained actors. And so what happens, of course, is that you get someone who's very comfortable in front of the camera, and people think that that's who it really is, and they basically are imposters, as in, you know, the orange guy. And then they vote for them because they're kind of comfortable in front of a camera, and that's really frightening. But that's kind of where we are in the 21st century.
No guesses who you voted for.
Yep.
Going back to the film, basically, it's just basically Gerard Butler trying to get the Russian president back, which is quite topical, I would imagine.
That was actually something that I wondered, and I actually asked, did this delay the film coming out? Because, of course, suddenly we don't like the Russians, whereas when they were developing it and when we were shooting it, we were absolutely fine with the Russians and wanting to be more friendly. But that was before we knew that they'd sort of hacked everything, and that they were also kind of, you know, murdering people in Salisbury. But apparently not. And it is fiction, and I have to say, I love the script. I mean, I really love these kinds of thrillers. I'm completely enthralled. And there's something about being under the sea as well, and submarines, that just sort of double down for me. I remember seeing Tora 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 years and years ago when it came out, which was the big Japanese submarine thriller movie about the Second World War. And then, of course, you know, there was the Hunt for Red October. There's just something horrendous about knowing that you might drown at any moment, leagues under the sea. And it just creates a natural drama as well. And then, you know, conspiracy theories and politics, it's really my kind of thing. And to be asked to be in the Situation Room, it's like I go to DEFCON 4. It's just kind of cool. And to be in charge and have Gary Oldman being the sort of the hawk right-wing general and trying to kind of hold him back. It was just really fun.
Well, Caroline, I'm going to shock you.
What? Why?
I know something you don't know. Do-da, do-da. Yeah. You were going on about, obviously, us being on good terms with the Russians when the film was in production.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that I'm talking to the actual on-screen president of the United States regarding this, because I have had a few other people I've talked to who are on the sub with Gerard Butler. But I found this news story this morning, so this is this morning, okay? Yeah. And I thought, no, I'll include it in the interview because I think it's worth it. You ready?
Yeah.
The Russian release of Hollywood action film Hunter Killer, in which US soldiers save a Russian president during a coup, has been postponed.
In Russia?
Yep. The distributor, Migogo Distribution, probably know better than I do, asked cinemas not to show the film hours before the premiere, saying it had not received a screening licence. Basically, in a Facebook post, as always Facebook, Russian opposition politician Dmitry Gudkov wrote that Moscow was not keen on the plot's hypothetical scenario, suggesting that President Vladimir Putin, who has obviously been in power for years, could be ousted.
How funny. Well, that's really interesting because that kind of turns it on its head. Because the idea was that there's a good president and then a bad guy coup taking over, and that the Americans have to go and save the good president, i.e. Putin, against some bad guy who is plotting a coup. But as we know, Putin is a bad guy anyway. But, you know, these kind of films don't rely on Russian distribution. They're all pre-sold way ahead because you've got an action star. And Gerard Butler is a very big action star, and these films don't get made unless they're completely pre-sold and have actually made a profit before they're starting. You know, I mean, it's always icing on the cake if you're going to get some kind of a release and you might get some money trickling down, but actually the person who's losing the money is the Russian distributor because he's already bought the film. It has nothing to do with the Americans. They're fine. So whatever he bought the film for, whether it was 100,000, 250,000, whatever it was when originally they pre-sold it, he's having to eat that. But it sounds to me if he doesn't get a license, that is very much because the Kremlin doesn't want him to. I gotta see this film now. Yeah.
So, Caroline, what was it like working with the cast and crew on set?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, Gary Oldman, I had not seen for many years, but we used to kind of run around in the same set together because I'm, that old, and I started out in the theatre in England, and I was at the Royal Court Theatre where Gary was as well, and, we kind of were all young actors together. We knew each other, we all socialised and hung out. So it was really lovely to see him again, and we reminisced, actually. We had a kind of very funny lunch where we all reminisced and, we started talking about theatre, and he started talking about the first job he ever got, which was he was the hind legs of a pantomime horse. And Common is a really fascinating guy and just so charming. And he was there, and Linda Cardellini as well, who I just love her work. Did you see that fantastic American series set in Florida that she was one of the stars of? I think it was called Bloodline.
Not off the top of my head.
Oh, you should see it. She's just wonderful. So, you've just got a bunch of really talented professionals all coming together for a scene that, has got a lot of people in. And you just got to whack through it. We had a very interesting South African director in Donovan Marsh, and great crew, and it was just kind of fun. So in between doing the scene, we were cracking a lot of jokes, and just having a good time.
Well, cracking jokes is good, but are there any sort of funny anecdotes you can share about the production of the film? Go on, give us some story.
Well, I will tell you something. I was a little surprised that the Situation Room was actually in the Sofitel Hotel, not far from Gatwick Airport. And so you walked in and we're in this hotel, and then we're kind of sent through to the end. And it was basically a boardroom that they'd, production designed to look like the Situation Room in the United States, in the White House. And there we were. So we'd pop out in all our costumes every so often to go to the bathroom, and there would just be a whole load of people who, had booked in because, staying in between flights. And so we were marching around in, uniforms and the whole 9 yards. And I think they probably thought we were a little strange. But we all just blended in and no one paid any attention to us. So those are the kind of anecdotes, yes, and talking to Gary about being the hind legs of a horse. Just sort of doing our job, really. Sorry to be boring.
Well, Caroline, let's talk a bit about you. What made you want to get into acting in the first place?
Oh, wow. That was so long ago. I was actually quite lucky. I was in a school play. I'd always wanted to be an actor. And I don't know why. I stuttered when I was a child. I had a very bad stutter. And what helped me get over it, oddly enough, was acting. I suddenly felt very freed by learning lines. I didn't stutter when it came out, and so that was very freeing. So then I was in a little TV series I was cast in, straight from a school play, believe it or not, in my last year when I finished school, and then I went to University of Bristol and I did English and Drama, which was a wonderful course, and I was a member of the National Youth Theatre. We had a lot of theatre in those days. There was rep theatre all round, so you went off to rep. I was a member of the Royal Shakespeare Company, at the Royal Court, the National Theatre. I did theatre for about 10 years and probably thought that I think I wanted to be a British dame of the stage. But then I came to Hollywood basically because I sort of followed a boyfriend, and I thought it would be quite nice to spend a winter in some sun. And it was sort of early 90s and kind of miserable time in London at the time. There was a recession and TV wasn't what it is now. It was going through, one of its periodic doldrums, and work was just kind of dull. I think I'd felt that I'd done a lot of what I wanted to do. I'd done a lot of Shakespeare. I'd, been in these wonderful companies. I wanted to spread my wings a bit, and I'm half Australian. So I'd also been working in Australia and doing sort of big leads in shows over there and movies. So I just thought, well, I'll just go to Hollywood and I'll hang out with my boyfriend and sit on, the beach and write, and, maybe if a job comes up, that's nice. And it just so happened that it did. And I got my first film that was Hook with Steven Spielberg. And that's like a great big housekeeping seal of approval. And I fell in love with film as a result of that, because when you are working with someone who is a genius and is so open and just generous, you just fall in love with the possibilities of film. And I was lucky because many people have to scrabble around and, have hard knocks, and then nice things happen. And I just found myself walking into a job right at the top of the tree and not even realizing it as well. I was just so naive. Oh, great, I got a job. Yeah, it's with Steven Spielberg, and Ron Williams is in it, and Dustin Hoffman, and all these stars, and wow, there I am. I'm driving myself to work down to Washington Boulevard to Sony Studios every day. It was like a fairy tale. And I would sit next to Steven and watch the monitor, and he'd show me, things, and we used to say motion picture, all about moving the camera. And I think that really inspired a lot in me, and so as a result I ended up having a bit of a movie career. But also it made me want to produce films and to write them. And so I've just wrapped my first major feature film, and I wrote it, and it's called The Bay of Silence, and it stars Clay Spang and Olga Kurilenko and Brian Cox and Alice Krieger and a wonderful French actor called Assad Boab, directed by Paul Levander Oost, who is an Oscar winner, Oscar nominee for Best Foreign Language Film, and has won many awards. She's Dutch. And I had my first taste of what it's like to actually produce, write, and finance film. And we're now heavily into the edit. So I guess, all those years ago and being inspired is coming to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Now, before the interview, I said to you that there were 3 films from your career that I was a fan of.
Okay. Shall I guess them?
Yes.
Okay, you're a guy. I don't think it can be Princess Diaries.
No.
Cliffhanger.
Yes.
Schindler's List.
Yes.
And the third, let me think. We're talking American movies, right?
Yes, you may have mentioned it already.
I've mentioned it.
Yeah.
You like Princess Diaries?
No.
Cliffhanger, Schindler's List. I didn't mention anything else. You said 3. White Squall.
No.
Disclosure.
No.
Hook.
Yes.
Silly me. Of course I have mentioned it. Yeah. Everyone grew up on Hook. How old are you?
Right, I'm going to shock you. When Hook came out, I was only 3.
I know, of course. No, listen, I get people who are balding coming up to me and say, I loved you when I was a kid. And I look at them and go, oh my goodness, you're really younger than me.
Do you know what the best part is? I want to make this sort of a little bit of a good nudge here. People my age, because I've just only turned 30, people my age have probably never heard of Remington Steele, nor did they know that Pierce Brosnan was Remington Steele before he was Bond. And you were in an episode of that as well, weren't you?
I was. That's so long ago. That was like, what, early 80s? I did. They came over to London and they were doing something in England. I think I was a hooker on a train station who had important information. I think it's about the only time that anyone has ever cast me to play a hooker.
Do you know what? I saw something. I couldn't believe this.
Go on.
I saw this and I thought, you're going to have to help me here. I saw a film that came after Hook called The Silver Brumby with Russell Crowe. Now, the weird thing about that is, and you'll like this, I think, is the poster, which has got you before Russell Crowe.
Correct. I know. Even then he wasn't very happy about that. I remember, I had top billing because at the time he was pretty much unknown. He'd done a movie called Proof, and he'd done another film. Oh, yeah, he'd done Rob Stomper. He was a superb actor, but very young, he was in his early 20s. But, partly because of the fact that my character had more to do than his, and also to do with the kind of international, how they sell it. Yeah, I got top billing. He's hilarious. Russell's fab. He's never changed. He just is who he is.
Now, obviously, Hook, I do have to mention the sad, obviously, passing of Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Fantastic actor that he was. What was it like working on that film? I mean, you've mentioned working with Steven Spielberg.
It was just a joy. I was so spoiled. Really, quite honestly, after that, sort of everything is going to have to be downhill. It was a joy. It was 6 months. I remember we had T-shirts saying the first 100 days. Your average movie now might take 30 days, maybe 60 or 70 if it's a big budget, and this went on forever. It was all in Southern California. It was the first year I lived here, so everything was new. I drove my little Beetle bug down to the set every day. Obviously, I wasn't called every day. We just all had these wonderful passes. I still have mine that was decorated by the props guy. I, just loved it. I would hang out in the props department, I'd hang out in the costume department, I would hang out on set, I would show people around. The sets were so extraordinary that it became one of those go-to things to do for people who, were in the know. Every so often, people would turn up and Stephen would say, do you want to show John Voight around? Do you want to show so-and-so around? Do you want to show the Queen of Jordan around? And we'd just sort of take them on little tours and say, this is Neverland, and, here's the pirate ship, and, this is where all the Lost Boys hung out. We just took over the whole Sony Studios, and it was the first time it had just been bought by them, because it was Columbia before that, and it was their flagship film, and they basically just sort of gave Stephen everything he needed and wanted. And Robin was just one of the most wonderful, inspiring people, and so much fun to be around. And obviously when he got into his zone where he'd entertain people, it was just like a Robin Williams, private concert, Often he would try out material. It was interesting. I mean, after a while you realise that, like many stand-up comedians, what he was often doing was he was just using the audience in order to see whether something worked, whether a laugh line worked or whatever. He never stopped kind of working on all of, in his one-man shows and everything just on his own. But what he did teach me was the power of improv on screen, the freedom to just be yourself and to make things up. And you really had to be on your toes. That's one of the reasons why I got the job, I think, was because when, I did have this audition with Robin and with Stephen, and it was just the three of us, and I just thought, well, if I don't get the job, it doesn't matter. Look, I'm just in the room with these two extraordinary people. And Stephen had like a little Sony cam, and, he was videoing. And really it was all about improv, here's something and this is what you have to do and say. And I remember I started improving. I've done a lot of stand-up comedy, actually. I've been in Edinburgh as a stand-up comedian. I was one of the kind of little sidelines I've been doing early on, and it really served me in good stead. And at one point I said to Robin, "You're not saying anything." And he said, "Oh no, but I've got the job." And then they told me I had the job when I walked out, which is one of the kindest things. I think the great thing about people who are really, truly talented and, successful is they've got nothing to prove. So they are wonderful to people around them. And they're... I go to sneeze. And what I generally find is that the people who aren't so nice are the people who aren't quite so talented.
There we go. Oh dear. So Cliffhanger, obviously I went with Cliffhanger, one of those pretty good Sylvester Stallone films. I think it still stands up now. The reason why I chose it, actually, you'll like this, I think it was last Saturday, it was, Caroline. I went to MCM Comic Con.
Oh, how was it?
It was absolutely fine. Wonderful.
I want to do one of those one day.
I mean, I didn't go for the whole weekend, I only went for one day. And I met, Colin Baker, who did I meet? Paul McGann, the list goes on. I met Chris Barry. But one of the people who I did meet, who I'd already interviewed before, was Craig Fairbass.
Craig, I knew you were going to say Craig. Love him.
And, terrific guy, terrific actor.
He's a bit of a kind of action star. He makes his own action movies, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's cool. I actually saw Craig in Cannes last year. We bumped into each other, and it was just so lovely to see him because I hadn't seen him for ages. Every time I bump into anyone from Cliffhanger, and the same with Hook, we just reminisce, because these are just such seminal experiences in anybody's life, because, they're just adventure stories in their own right. And Cliffhanger especially, because also it was extreme. And, there was the age of extreme filmmaking, which was epitomised by Carol Co., really, which was this company that did all the Schwarzeneggers and all the Stallone films. And, there was no special effects in those days that were digital. So you did everything for real. Now, so much is done, on the computer that people don't really have to get out of bed. But we did, and we were 12,000 feet up every day in snow. There's actually a great anecdote, which is really fun, which is there's this scene where the helicopter has to come down, and my character is lying face down in the snow and pretending to be dead. And the helicopter lands, and I turn around, and I end up killing the helicopter pilot. And that's how we get the helicopter. And then, of course, I'm killed later on by John Lithgow, who, of course, I did see recently because we were both in The Crown. And anyway, so the thing is that the snow had to look pristine, and there only could be one set of footprints. And so I very carefully put my feet into this one set of footprints to get over, and so did the first AD and everybody else. And they gave me a walkie-talkie, and they gave me 3 flares that I personally had to light, which of course probably with health and safety wouldn't be allowed anymore. I had to light these flares when I heard on the walkie-talkie, action, and at that point, they'd set the helicopter off, and the helicopter would come up and, fly at that point the camera needed it to, and then land, and, the whole thing. So it basically all relied on the actor to get all this going, this massive stunt and scene. So there I am, lying face down, absolutely frozen, and we just had to do it the third time. And I had the walkie-talkie, and I just shifted, because I had to keep everything underneath me in order for it not to be seen from the shot above. And suddenly I feel this walkie-talkie just kind of edge out from under me and suddenly slide down and away. And I'm lying face down on a glacier. And one thing they said is you must never move. The safety guys have got to come, because they prepped everything because it's so dangerous. And so I thought, well, I can't go running after it. So I'm just hoping that from far away I'm going to hear action. However, the walkie-talkie just tumbles and goes over down into a crevasse. So now I'm lying there with 3 flares and no way of talking to anybody. And I lie there, and I think I've got hypothermia now. I'm going to die, and nothing is happening. And then finally this little head pops out from about 100 yards away and goes, "What the is going on?" I was like, "Help! I can't hear you." So that was all screwy. Yeah, it was like that every day. There was always something. You thought you were going to die on a daily basis. But we had a blast. John Lithgow would go, "NAR today, darling, NAR," meaning no acting required. So there was a lot of trudging across, white landscapes, hitting people over the head with guns and saying one line, "Stop, go," and just kind of having fun. We'd get up there by snowcat and snowmobile and helicopters every day. As I said, it's extreme filmmaking. The other extreme film I did was White Squall, and that again was real. We were in these storms. We were out on this boat. And this is the thing that people don't realize with actors, is that you do have to be very fit a lot of the time, and you have to go through things that most people in any job wouldn't even imagine that they would be asked to do. And we do it. We're idiots. So there you go. But it's fun.
It's also got the most recognisable theme tune as well.
Which has? Cliffhanger? Hum it to me.
Da 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 da. Yeah.
That's really good. The other thing, of course, is that it was parodied for the opening of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. Did you not know that?
I didn't.
No? The opening of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective is shot by shot the opening of Cliffhanger, but it's not this woman who goes down, it's a raccoon he's trying to save. It is so funny.
Well, I do know one thing. They made a Super Nintendo game of Cliffhanger.
Did they?
And they butchered the theme tune. I'll tell you now, Caroline. They butchered the theme tune. This is the original. And this is what the Super Nintendo version sounds like. So Super Nintendo, is that the new one or the old one? You're talking at least when the film came out, they made a game of it.
Oh, I should get that for my son. He's kept all those old game things. And, of course, all this stuff now is coming back, whether it's, record players and all these old gaming things. So it's great that, I'm a hoarder and I keep everything because, I've got boxes of this stuff from their childhood that I think we can sell now on eBay.
Mm. And Caroline, obviously, I would not be a good person if I didn't talk about Schindler's List.
Okay.
I will say one thing, Caroline. Not many people know this. I've only seen Schindler's List once, which is a disgrace probably, but I'd only seen it once a couple of years ago. I hadn't actually seen it, through my teens or through my 20s. It was about a couple of years ago I saw it. And I just cried at the end. The ending scene. Everyone knows the ending scene. Yeah. What was it like working on that? I mean, obviously, I'm guessing that with Hook, because it was Stephen, you were sort of cast as a result of that, probably?
It was amazing. Stephen rang me up. I was in Vancouver shooting something, and I'm in a hotel, and I get, on the line, it's like, could you hold Steven Spielberg, please? And I honestly thought it was a joke. You don't kind of chat, generally, It's not that kind of relationship. So obviously something was up for him to be ringing me personally. And so he just came on, he said, hi, I'm doing this film, I don't know if you've heard about it. And actually I had, because obviously it was in the trades, and I knew it was Schindler's Ark, which was the book by Thomas Keneally, which I hadn't read but had been obviously quite celebrated. And he said, how's your German accent? And I remember going, jawohl. And he said, look, I need, an Emily Schindler, and he was very sweet. He said, look, I can give you fourth billing. It's not a very big role, but I'd really love you to do it. I was like, are you kidding? This is something that I would kill for. Number one, to work with you again, but also to do something that I knew was really going to have a very profound effect on cinema. I just knew it, just because of the subject matter. And to be a part of that, as actors, we strive, and I'm, being serious here, we strive to do something meaningful. That's one of the reasons why we go into it. Especially as an English actor, you never think you're going to make any money. It's a vocation. If you make a bit of money on the side, that's really nice. You can look after your family and things. But really what you're doing is you're trying to do something that you think that, when you look back over a number of years, you think there's a few things there I did that were really worthwhile and I'm proud of. And so I knew that this would be one of them. And so it was just, a gift to be there. And yes, I think we all knew that we were doing something extremely special as well. Stephen did too, and it was relatively, for him, a low budget. He had fought for it to be in black and white, because that is very much what people's memories of the Second World War are, and he wanted that feel. The only colour was in the Pacific. When you see, documentaries about that, they're all in colour, and it's rather kind of strange. It's quite jarring. And so I think he was very right to do it in black and white. It's an extraordinary story, written by Stephen Zalian. The balance was completely right. And I was invited last April to go to the 20th anniversary of Schindler's List, and it was at the Tribeca Festival, and they showed it in the Beacon Theatre in New York. And they invited all of us, and Stephen came too. And it was the first time he told me that he had actually sat and watched the film since he'd done the 10-year sort of edit of it, and he'd decided he was going to sit and see it. So we all sat and watched it, and for me, I think that was probably the fourth time I'd seen it. I had seen it 4 times, once in Washington at the big premiere, once again with my family around that time. So that was the early 90s. Once again, oddly enough, on television, the night I heard that Heath Ledger died. And I was up all night because he was a big family friend. My husband had made 3 films with him. And I was just so in shock. And it just happened to be on. And it just seemed a very poignant and the right time to see it again. And it was sort of on at 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I saw it again on the big screen, the first time on the big screen last April, and then we all sat and did a Q&A afterwards, and it just blew me away because every single scene is a masterpiece, and that I didn't realise before, and I've seen it, you're looking for other things. This time with, 20 years, was it 25 years now, remove, you're just seeing it from the point of view of a filmmaker and what he's accomplished. And it really was utterly remarkable. And it is, as I say, it is utterly remarkable film from that point of view as well. And if you think that Janusz Kaminski was a first-time DOP, we had a few Americans. We had our sound guy, Ron Judkins, was an American, but mainly it was Europeans, and of course, large contingent from Israel as well, and Germany and the UK. Yeah, it was tough. It was Krakow in Poland just after the end of communism. So it was bleak. Krakow was really, really bleak at the time, and we were shooting in freezing cold. We started in late February, went right through, and it was, really demanding stuff, incredibly demanding stuff. But Stephen, I think, was just at the peak of his powers. I just think he just so knew what he was doing. He was so ready for it. But ironically, at the same time, he was editing Jurassic Park. So at the weekends, he would fly to Paris and he'd be editing Jurassic Park. And actually, there's a nice little anecdote, which was the day before I was set to leave, I got a call from Amblin from the office, and they said, could you take something by hand for us? And I said, sure. So they said, we want it in your hand, like if you could just to production when you get there. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm actually very well known for leaving things behind on planes, whether it's handbags or coats or whatever. And we did have to change planes, so there was this kind of moment when I had to come rushing back and check that I had everything, including the little package. I said, what is it? And they said, it's all the digital dinosaurs for Jurassic Park. We're talking no dinosaurs, no Jurassic Park. Yeah, I guess they probably had a backup somewhere in Burbank, but I was carrying the masters. And this was the first time we realized the possibility of what digital effects was. Because prior to that, things weren't done digitally. It changed everything, the possibilities. And, of course, it was Stephen doing it. But the irony was that he was making Schindler's List, which is possibly the most character-driven, serious film that is, and is in history books. And at the same time, making another film that's in history books, which is Jurassic Park, editing that at the same time. The ability to be able to carry those two extraordinary films and curate them at the same time, that's a measure of who he is. But the other thing is little did anyone know, and that's, my fun fact of my contribution to digital effects and Jurassic Park is that I was the one who brought the dinosaurs over. And if I'd lost them, God knows what would have happened.
Well, I will mention one thing to get us back onto Hunter Killer. There is actually an interesting link, I suppose. You mentioned that Heath Ledger was a family friend who was obviously working with Gary Oldman in The Dark Knight, which is one of my favourite films.
Yeah, me too.
And then, obviously, you've got that connection back to Hunter Killer in the present day.
Listen, it's 2 degrees. It's amazing. It is amazing. And I think, in a way, that's the fun thing about our job, is that if you're in it for long enough, everybody comes around again for a second go.
Well, I'm going to give you a 1-minute plug, Caroline. It's to basically plug Hunter Killer and anything else you've got coming up.
Okay. Well, please go and see Hunter Killer, everyone. I think it's a really, really fantastic action movie, and I play the President of the United States. I also have got a movie coming out called The Islander, which I think is really going to be great for gamers. It's a really cool sort of post-apocalyptic water movie. I have got a film that I have just produced and wrote called The Bay of Silence, which is a psychological thriller in the Hitchcock-Polanski vein, with the brilliant Clay Spang of The Square, Olga Kurilenko, who of course is a Bond girl as well as a very brilliant actress in indie movies, and Brian Cox. If you've not seen him in Succession, for goodness sake, you binge watch that one. It's all ongoing.
Well, Caroline, it's been a pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you, Matt. I'm sorry I have too many jokes, but it's been a lot of fun.
Wonderful. Thanks very much for your time.
Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Bye. Thank you.